Assalamu alaikum and welcome to KF Talks, where we aim to represent Muslim sisters from varying communities. We will delve into their struggles and aspirations in the Western world and how they serve Lady Fatima, peace be upon her, in all they do. This podcast aims to provide a safe platform for us to delve into and voice our thoughts on issues that may not usually be readily and openly discussed in our communities. My name is Kawthar Hakimy and I'm your host today. Welcome to part 2 of our grief episode. As mentioned before, grief can be a complex experience with a diverse set of emotions. With me today is Sister Sabura, who had been through this and will share with us some of her experiences dealing with loss and grief.
Sister Sabura, would you like to talk to us a little bit about what you've been through and how are you right now?
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, it's quite a coincidence, isn't it, that today of all days we're doing this podcast, because it is 3 years that we lost my dad on the 8th of Safar. It's been funny actually. I remember talking to my sister about this, and it's just like you go through every emotion, I think. I mean, he did have quite a long battle with his health, and ultimately it was the cancer that took him. And I remember even before he died, my mum kept telling me, Sabura, the best thing for him now is to just, he needs to, just let go of life now. That'll be the best thing for him. Pray for that. And that's he's in so much pain and, he's suffering so much. And I just look at her and think, how can you say that? How can you even pray for such a thing? And then looking back now, I completely agree with her, because death, it's the biggest blessing in disguise, especially for someone who's suffering so much.
Yeah, it's a bit
and
of a
with
release,
Dad, it is, and with Dad as well. But I remember feeling when he passed away, I remember just feeling so numb. I didn't feel much, and I remember the day after we went to the graveyard, and I was just looking at his grave, thinking, I didn't think anything. That was the weird thing. I didn't think anything. I didn't acknowledge the fact that he was buried 6 feet under there. I just used to look and think, that's not my dad. I don't know what this is.
It doesn't make
it's not
sense.
him. It doesn't. You feel very confused. And I think after feeling confusion for such a long time and just that numbness, it was like anger I experienced. And it was just looking at other people and their fathers. And I'm thinking, that's not fair. Why she got a father? Why was I not allowed to? Why couldn't he just, be with me still?
That was mine taken away, yeah.
Yeah, because we always used to talk about life together. And I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, I completely understand. My father as well, he went through cancer and it's very painful. Like, I remember when I used to hear people say, oh, they've been battling cancer. I didn't really understand it. And then when I saw my father himself go through it, I was just like, it really is a battle. Like, the pain they go through and just like being able to eat. And I remember this thing about my dad. He used to have on his fingertips that every time I get a cut on my finger, now I remember, on his fingertips, he used to have these little tiny cuts that he couldn't even open a bottle with anymore. And like the other day, I got a little cut on my finger and I just remembered my dad. I was like, he had these on all his fingers. And it just, like with grief, it comes in waves and it just hits you sometimes when you least expect it.
And it can be the smallest thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be the
little
smallest
paper
thing,
cut.
like a paper cut, or I don't know, you could be listening to something, or it could be a color or a smell, or it's the tiniest thing that can just set you back.
Definitely. No, and I also remember I was working in a nursery like last year, and it was around the time of Father's Day, and we were doing like these little Father's Day cards and stuff. And I was just like printing these Father's Day things and cutting them out, and and it got to a stage where it really built up and I just couldn't, and I just broke down, and I told one of the teachers, and they were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. If we knew, we wouldn't have and I was just crying into the stranger's arms, and because I worked as like a supply teacher, so I didn't even they weren't my coworkers that I worked with every single day. It was just like some strangers, and it was just.
It is funny how you seem to open up to strangers more than people that you actually know. Yeah, I went through that.
Definitely. Yeah. Did you have any coping mechanisms after?
Actually, I didn't really cope with it very well. I think I'm still dealing with it. I mean, I think had I known that there was help there, I would have. I wish I went and sought out help, because I definitely needed it. I felt very lonely which is weird because my family was going through the same thing I was. So it wasn't like I didn't have anyone around me experiencing this. But yeah, I felt very lonely and sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, because we all deal with it in different ways.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
with family, we don't tend to show our emotions in front of our families when it's something like this. We all sort of hide it away because we don't want to affect our family. We don't want to upset, you know, my sibling or my mom.
Exactly,
If she sees me crying, you know, she'll get upset. So we all sort of keep it in. And I feel like all the family members do the same thing. And I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. Like, are we protecting each other, or are we just making things worse for each other?
I think ultimately that's what it is. You're protecting each other, and you don't want the other person to cry just because you're crying. So you just try and keep it in and be strong for them, I guess. I think. I mean, you feel that it's a very vulnerable position that you're in. I think I was in such a negative mindset. I was like going through so much self-pity. I was just so angry and upset with everything and everyone around me. Like you, I was very cold. And I think I have definitely changed. I'm not the same person I was before. I think I'm like talking to my friends. They said you literally just cut off for about 2 years. We didn't speak to you. We didn't see you, and you're just a completely different person. And like, I think I've become a better person from it. It definitely has put everything into perspective. It's not like I think I'm more God conscious, and ultimately this life is temporary, isn't it? It's
quite
and
I
know I'll see my dad again.
Yeah.
Even if not in the physical form he was in this life, I know I'll meet his soul, and I know he's at peace now, and that's what gives me peace, knowing he's okay now. He's not suffering anymore. And like Sister Amber was saying, I love going to the graveyard. That's as morbid as it sounds to most people. Like that's like the best place to be, especially when you're feeling so down. I could spend all day there just talking to him, sitting down and thinking, reflecting about life.
Yeah, it's quite a reality check. It hits you, and it changes your perspective quite a bit.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, but even now, you get these like sudden pangs of like just now.
Yeah,
such intense sadness and grief. It's just I wish I could stop it because I hate crying in front of people, but it's just I can't help it. Even if I'm not thinking about it, something can just set me off. Like I could be, I don't know, like yesterday my sister was cutting an apple and she cut it the way my dad would cut it, and he'd say, look, if ever you cut an apple slicing it downwards, you'll see that the pips, there's always 5 pips, and that's God representing the quenched and dark. So he'd always make references like that, which is but so anything like that could just set you off, couldn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And I think because this was my first real death experience, because I've never experienced losing a relative or a loved one, it's just very new, isn't it, if you've not experienced it before? And I think I wish I could go back to that time period and tell myself it's okay not to be okay. Like, you're going to get through this, and you have God. With God, you can take over the world. You know, there's nothing you can't do. You'll get over this. It's fine.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning about like feeling numb as well. Like I remember in the Fatiha that we had after my dad passed away, I couldn't cry. I just couldn't cry. I just held it back, and even like my aunt was crying, my mom was crying, and I just couldn't. I don't know. I just felt like I couldn't cry in front of people. I didn't want people to look at me and feel sorry for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I couldn't accept it either. Like I couldn't accept. I felt like if I were to cry, then it meant that I accept that my father's passed away.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make, there's no logical sense. Like
no, there isn't. But I completely understand.
My
it's
kids,
weird.
if you're gonna come back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was weird because I remember sitting in the mosque, and this is just after they brought the body in. We were saying our final goodbyes, and I don't actually remember this, but I was told that I wouldn't let go of the coffin, and I kept saying, I'm not leaving him. He's not going anywhere. He's staying with me. But yeah, it's just weird how it's like we talked about it before, didn't we? How it's I can't remember much, but you just get these like vivid little moments, I guess, where you can remember it so clearly, but overall it's just a blurry experience. I cannot recall anything from that time, honestly.
Do you think that blurry experience is also like God helping us not feel all that grief because it's so painful?
For sure, it is definitely, and that's one of alhamdulillah, that's one of the biggest blessings from God, because my mum always used to say you'll forget about it because that's how God wants you to deal with it. And it's completely true. I mean, I'll remember him for who he was, not what he became, and not what the cancer took away from him, which was his life and his independence, because he was such an independent, hardworking man throughout his life, and you see them in such a state and you feel very helpless. I think that was the biggest thing. Just sitting and not knowing what I could do to make it better. But I think him going back to his Lord was definitely the best thing that ever happened to me, as well as him, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It is really painful though. I mean, like, especially with it being your father's death anniversary. Like, I'm so sorry about that. For it to be on the same day that we're having this episode.
Again, I think it is. It is very raw, and I think maybe this was not just a coincidence. I think maybe people who are going through the same thing or have gone through the same thing can relate, and maybe it'll help them, I guess, which I hope it will, inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah. I mean, that is the purpose of this episode. Inshallah, if anyone is going through a period of grief and they're struggling with it. I mean, I struggled so hard. Like, I was in denial. Like, I know there's these stages of grief where denial, and then anger, and then resentment, and then I don't know, like, there's a bunch of different stages. I was in denial for a very long time. Like, it was a complex bereavement, according to my GP. I went to my GP to get help. They prescribed me I was on antidepressants for a while, which just made me even more numb. But it's funny. I feel like when I was on the antidepressants, I had very vivid dreams of my dad. And I remember the dreams that I had of my dad were always that he had gone on a holiday or something, and then we thought he had died or something, but he'd come back. Or like we buried him, but it was a mistake that we buried him and he'd come back. So I was in such a denial that he was going to, like, all my dreams were him coming back.
I think, I had weird dreams actually, just a couple of days after he passed away. And I can vividly remember those dreams. It was weird. He was just sitting and playing with a baby. And when I looked at the baby, I knew it was my baby. And I'm not married. I don't have any children. But it was like this chubby little boy he was playing with, and it was my son apparently. But they've all been nice dreams. Alhamdulillah, no nightmares, but
and then you wake up and then you're like, oh,
it's over. He's not.
He's not coming back.
No.
Did you find that as time went on? Did you guys find that as time went on, there were less dreams? Because that's something that I've struggled with. Because at the beginning there was more dreams, and you sort of think, oh, brilliant, sense of her, she's okay. And then now as time's going on, there's less dreams and less dreams. You just think, gosh,
And it sounds really sad, but I would look at his pictures and just all his things. Like, I still have his watch, his hat, and I think about him so much just before I go to bed, so I could dream about him, and I never would. And it's just I wouldn't. I think that's God's way of telling me that he's okay now. He's in a different realm and he's fine. Inshallah.
And maybe he knows that you're okay as well, because I remember a couple of months after my mum passed away, somebody said to me, who'd also been through a bereavement, that your mother can't find true peace and she can't get her actual true reward until she knows you're okay. So you've got to let go a little bit, which I found so difficult, but I didn't want to hold her back as well.
Because you don't want to feel like you're abandoning them. Like, even when it comes to burying them, you don't want to let go of the coffin. You don't want to let go of the body.
Exactly.
You feel like you're abandoning them, like you're leaving them or something.
You feel guilty, don't you? It's weird. If I don't visit the graveyard at least once a week, I'll feel really guilty. And I'm like, no, I should have gone and visited my dad today. He's so lonely. I should go. But like, I'm always praying for him. I think that's one thing that did save me was namaz walidain. Oh, that's one of the most beautiful prayers that you can do. And every time I feel sad or upset, regardless of what time of day it was, because I know it's the Thursday evening prayer, I pray from every morning, every night, all day, every day. And like, even like how you were saying, Sister Amber, that you read Quran at the graveyard, that was the best thing for me. I go and I just sit and read and read and read.
And Sabura, how are you dealing with it now, like in your day-to-day life? Has it changed anything in your routine? Or
I don't think it's changed me as a person. Not much in my routine, I guess. I mean, I'm praying more for him, so prayers take extra longer, I guess. Or reading Quran, which I didn't used to do before. I read more of it now, every day, just a little bit every day for him. And for myself as well. I mean, looking at translation, it's comforting, isn't it? Knowing that this life is temporary, you're going to meet him again. Ultimately, we're all going to die. Harsh as that sounds to some people, because I think now I've noticed I do talk about death a lot more. And I'm okay with that.
We've had the same conversation in our house as well. Like, I've sorted out my things to, like, very limited clothes and stuff, and I talk about it all the time. Like, I say to my oldest daughter or my husband, you know, when I die, by the way, can you make sure you look at my phone, because it tells you how many sibaras I've got to read for somebody else. Or it's very matter of fact in our house now. It's a normal conversation. I think that's how it should be, though, shouldn't it? It should be, absolutely. It should be, right?
Because my parents, they have their coffins. Well, my dad did. My mum had her coffin below her bed, and she knows it's in that suitcase, and she says, I look at it every day, and that's ultimately where I'm going. And like, my dad was the best example of a Muslim to me personally. He wasn't just a father for me. He was my best friend. He was my teacher. He was everything. And he literally had just very limited material possessions. He didn't have much, and he was happy with that. He was satisfied with that. I mean, he'd go and do jobs for people, and my mum would be like, don't you want to ask them for some money? You should be getting paid for this. It's your time, your effort. And my dad would say, no, I'm doing God's work. I don't want anything from it. If I've got the satisfaction of God, I'm fine. And that's enough for me. So alhamdulillah, I wish I could be half the person he was. And I'd be more than happy with that.
Honestly, it's so amazing to have such role models.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, though, because we'd always talk about me having children. And I always say, Dad, you're gonna be the one to read azan in the baby's ear. You're gonna be the first one to pick him up. And he'd always be like, yeah, don't worry, I'll be there. But I know he's here in spirit, and my mum always likes to say, he's always praying for you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So it's comforting to know.
Yeah, I think also another thing that comforted me as well was, like, even though we buried him, like, even though I told myself, like, even though his physical body isn't here, I always felt that he was with me. Always. Yeah. Like, I was like, my dad's here, you know? Yeah. I can't see him, which kind of sucks. Like, why can't I see him? I can't hug him. I can't.
Exactly, yeah.
But I know he's here.
His hand.
Yeah.
Because my dad collected a lot of books, and we literally have a library downstairs. So that's the best room I like to stay in, read all of his books. And I still find notes and pictures. He used to do this funny thing where he'd use our photographs, mainly mine, as bookmarks in, like, if he was reading a book. So I keep finding pictures of myself in books, and I'm like, Mom, look, I found another one. But yeah, it's a nice reminder of him, and his notes and things. That's why I'm in the process of learning Urdu, so I can read through the notes and actually understand what he was written about, all these books that he's read.
Inshallah. Yeah, definitely. What about any Quranic ayahs, or specifically hadith or stories?
I think
is there anything like that stood out for you?
I think one that stood out for me was Surah Yasin, which I've been reading every day since. Salamun qala min Rabbir Rahim, peace, a word from a merciful Lord. And it just resonated with me so much, because it just reminds you, doesn't it? It gives you that comfort that our sukoon, our peace is from God, and no one else, nothing else can give it to us. And it just, it's very comforting. I love reading it again and again, just to remind myself.
Yeah, our peace is from God, and then when we go, like, when it's our time to go, we're just going back to peace, you know, and love and contentment and mercy.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, and like we said, how his death put everything into perspective for me. Life is so short. It's so short. I mean, I'm only 25, but I think I don't want to waste time, because I think that's the thing I did because I didn't grieve very well. I didn't really let it out. I was numb for so long. I think I wasted a big portion of my life. And my mum says, you've not wasted it. That's just how you've dealt with it. It's not a waste of life. That's just you dealing with it. I think I could have dealt with it better, but inshallah.
But I think also there's no right way or wrong way, is there?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. That's why I think this podcast will be such a great help to people, because, I mean, I guess you can relate to what we're saying, or understand, I guess, that the help is out there, whether you want to take it or not. God is always there.
Yeah, definitely. And, like, as in, the way Sister Amber grieved was different to the way we grieved.
Exactly.
As in, we sort of went into, like, numb mode and everything. Like, we couldn't cry, but Sister Amber, alhamdulillah, crying is such a catharsis.
It is. It does let it out, doesn't it? And make you feel better.
Yeah, and one point I just wanted to mention as well about not crying in front of family members. I feel like when we don't cry in front of family members, it's sort of telling them that it's not okay to cry. And I feel like that's kind of wrong, as in we should be able to show our emotions in front of our family.
Yeah.
And
especially it's okay not to be okay.
A bereavement or grief, or having a loved one pass away. grieving together could bring you closer together. It could help you sort of get through it together. But when you're sort of like hiding that away, it feels more lonely, I think. I mean, I don't know.
I agree.
One of the things that I've learned to look at things differently as well. So I understand your point about, your family might think that you're okay, or it's okay to not be okay. On the flip side, I think I cried so much that everyone was probably worried about upsetting me more.
Yeah.
I think I was probably the complete other end of the spectrum, probably also not healthy to you guys. Like, I just cried so much that everyone was just like, don't want to say anything to make her more upset as well, so.
Yeah.
But I couldn't stop it. I could not. And it was physically and mentally and, emotionally draining as well. Sometimes I wanted to stop just so I could almost breathe, but sometimes you just can't.
Yeah, I had that. You do feel, I think.
Yeah.
No, sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's important to have like a middle ground, because they say خير الأمور أوسطها, like Islam is a religion that teaches you to be moderate.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you've got us unable to show our emotions. On the other hand, you have Sister Amber, who's like really experiencing her emotions. So we need to find a way that's like somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Where we are expressing our emotions, but we're doing so in a way that's not scaring our family.
Yeah. I think I could relate to that. I think maybe my family didn't express emotion in front of me anyway, probably to protect me, because they knew that I was dealing with it. So it hit me the hardest, I think, because I think, my siblings all lost grandparents, and they were all closer to them than I was, because I was born in this country, but they were born in Pakistan. So they lived with the grandparents and saw them and spoke to them, but I didn't, so I didn't really know them. So yeah, I think when you're dealing with it, you're in such a vulnerable sort of negative headspace anyway, that I think expressing any sort of emotion to people who are around you is a good thing, I think, because you said, you can do it together, can't you? And it's more comforting knowing that, it's not just me going through it, he's going through it, she's going through it. And I think another thing that helped with me and my family, we wouldn't necessarily express emotion, but we'd always talk about Dad, and we'd tell each other funny stories that we never knew. And I'm still learning so much about my dad that I really didn't know. He lived a crazy life, and he was a very very funny man.
Yeah, I think it's important to sort of prepare yourself on how to deal with grief, because it's something that we're all going to experience in our lives, and I don't feel like
ultimately
it's spoken about much, and it hasn't, like, no one's really teaching us on how to deal with it. But I mean, even when it happens, it's going to hit you hard, but it's important to have the tools to be able to deal with it, and to sort of understand, what's happening, and how it's a normal part of life, and this is just,
just the life cycle, isn't it?
The destination we're all going towards.
Yeah, and I think to talk about your own death, as Sister Sabura said, I feel because my mum went so quickly, we probably touched on it a little bit, but not anything in depth. Whereas I'm always telling my kids and my husband about, what I want or what I don't want, and it should be as normal as birth and life and marriage and everything else. Death should not be a taboo subject. It shouldn't necessarily be a sad subject. It should be like a subject of reality. This is the biggest reality that we're going to face, so I think we need to open up and talk about it and normalize it.
Totally agree with that. And it's like after he passed away, there was a lady who had passed away, and they were looking for people to wash the body. They didn't have enough people. And I remember thinking, I think I should do this. And my mum was like, are you sure? I don't think this is the best thing for you to do. I was like, no, I need to do this. And it was probably one of the most beautiful experiences I could have gone through, because you're literally looking at the cycle of life. I mean,
it's very funny, Sabura, that you've said that.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I've started to do in Stanmore. I've joined the Ghusl Kafan team.
Yeah.
And I just started it a couple of months before my mum died. But actually, it is, for me, it's very cathartic, because when you're giving Ghusl to a mayyit, it just puts life into all proportion. You think, this is it. You're at the mercy of 4 to 6 people to bathe you and to shroud you. And you're not taking a single thing, not a penny, not a piece of cloth, nothing apart from what they're giving you. And it is, I find it again in a very, it's a really weird way, but if I say enjoy, that's probably not the right word, but I find it very peaceful. It gives me some sort of meaning to life, and I feel like I've given something back. You know, and it's a very, it's really weird how you mentioned that, but I do find it very, very helpful.
It is very helpful. I think that's what I think more centres should encourage. Like, I want to do that with our local centre. We should have these classes. We should know how to do this, because ultimately people around us are going to die. So, you know, we need to know how to wash, bathe and bury them. Because if it's not us, who will it be?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think I was speaking to my mum about this, and she was saying the exact same thing. She was saying, if I pass away, I would never want any strangers to do it. I would want my family to do it. And I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, so the final point that I wanted to mention is, how do you raise awareness about this in the community? And like, what does the community need to know and do moving forward? Because like we mentioned, grief is something that we're all going to go through. It's like the biggest reality of our lives. Everyone that we know, everyone that we have around us is going to pass away. We're going to pass away. How can the community help with the grief process, with some education, with giving us the tools on how to deal with it? You know, like, what do you think?
I mean, what better example do we have than the Lady of Light herself? I mean, look at Lady Fatima, look at the calamity she went through and the grief that she went through. And then you look at Lady Zainab, who says, I see nothing but beauty. I mean, how can we even talk about our own grief when you just look at people like them and you think, no, I've been through nothing compared to them. So if they can still see the beauty in it and they can still keep their faith in God, maybe that's a good example or a way for us to start talking about it, about how death, it shouldn't be a taboo topic, like Sister Amber was saying. We should talk about what we're going to experience after it. Maybe it's okay to experience anger, confusion, numbness, because that's just how you're dealing with it.
I think we are sort of told to be patient.
But what does that mean, though? I kept getting told that when my dad passed away.
Me too.
I used to think, what do you mean? What do I have to do? I don't want this feeling to be inside me anymore. I'd love to be the normal person, the normal Sabura that I was before this, but I just can't. And you're telling me to be patient. I think I am being patient.
Yeah. And it's also another thing that they tell you is, mashallah, you're so strong. And that's like the complete opposite of what I was thinking. I was like, what do you mean I'm so strong?
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, if I get another woman telling me I'm strong, that's it. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it.
I remember around Mother's Day last year when it was lockdown, and I had people phoning me up and saying, you know, we're still far away from our kids, so we understand what you're going through. And I was really angry. Generally, I'm not an angry person. And I got really mad because I was just like, no, you know, well, you can still FaceTime your child or your mum, you know, I can't. And sometimes even like when people say your mother's always with you, yes, like Sister Kawthar said, I can sense her, I can feel her. She's with me, but she's not.
Exactly. You know? It's not the same.
It's not the same. She can't talk to me. I can't see her. So you know what? Maybe don't say she's with you all the time, because it doesn't always help. I mean, my community was really, really supportive to me and my family. I am forever, till the day I die, indebted to the support that they showed us. What I would really like to see is more professional support being offered to our communities, either through centres. Now that we're living in an age where things are more online, you know, I think one of the biggest aspects is the cost of coaching or private counselling, and that it's not easily affordable. And so, you know, if maybe centres could subsidise or sponsor people to be trained in this, to then offer that bereavement counselling to the local community. Because, you know, as I said before, mental health issues are much more prevalent now. And if there's more awareness of it, and if there are more mental health issues around, then a bereavement can maybe just knock that person completely. You know, we don't want people to go towards suicide or not being able to cope with life at all. But I think it is important to tell people and youngsters that, you know what, reach out for help. And then we need to find a way within us as a community to offer that help as well. So, you know, both things together.
I agree. I think we need, I think when it comes to physical health, I mean, people take it so seriously. You've got a slight backache, you run to your GP, you've got an appointment, you've got your meds for it. But what about your mental health? That affects everything you do, doesn't it? Everything you do. And I think maybe more psychological based help, so counsellors, I guess, or therapists, maybe to come in and talk in these centres, to tell them that whatever you're going through, just know that you're not alone. Just know that, you know, you've got God. I think maybe do it from an Islamic perspective, where you talk about God, because that's ultimately all we have, isn't it, in this life? And how we only should really rely on God and nothing else. And for me personally, that's how I dealt with it, knowing that I have God and this life will come to an end for me as well, and how I live this life is what matters the most, isn't it?
For me, like having God being mentioned to me was a bit like annoying, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Like, because I went to 2 counselors and they were both Muslim, and they were all like, okay, you know, think about God, and this is God's will, and everything's, you know, everyone goes through this. So I just felt like I was being invalidated today, because it's like, I'm Muslim, I know about God, I know, you know, I have to be patient, I know all these things. What I don't know is this new feeling of grief. Like, what is this grief, and why is it impacting me so much? Why do I feel so bad? Why have I lost my father? Like, okay, I know like mentally, in terms of like factually, okay, yeah, you know, people die, but emotionally, it's very difficult. It's like, it's quite traumatic. You know, you've got this, you're distressed, and there are so many like different feelings you go through, like this guilt that you feel afterwards, like, oh, I wish I did more for my dad. Why, you know, why didn't I hug him more? Why didn't I take more pictures with him? Why didn't I, you know, I don't know, cook for him more? Like, there's just all these little things that make you feel so guilty and give you so much regret. And it's just like, how do you deal with those? No one talks about that. Everyone just talks about being patient, and, you know, you can get through this, and this is just natural, and, you know, all these things. But there's all these different, like you mentioned, you felt anger as well. Like, that needs to be addressed. Like, we need to tell people it's okay to feel to go through denial. Like, it's normal. Because with me, I just felt like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I? What's going on? Like, I just couldn't make sense of anything.
I think for a long time
as
well.
Go through denial.
I used to think, am I being ungrateful to God? Because I feel guilty and I feel angry at the same time. It was weird. Like, I'd see other people with their fathers, and I'm thinking, but why does she get to have a dad with her? Why does he have his dad with him? That's not fair. I didn't do anything wrong. My dad didn't do anything wrong. He deserves to be here with me.
And you feel like a bad Muslim. You feel like
you do, because you're questioning and self-doubting.
You're doing something haram.
Exactly. Yeah. I did go through that.
Honestly,
it was weird.
I felt like I've lost my connection with God. I just felt like I lost my connection.
Oh yeah,
with
for a long time I did feel like that. Yeah.
A little bit angry. Yeah. A little bit angry at God. Like, why did you have to take my dad away? And it's like, that needs to be addressed so that people know that these are natural feelings.
Yeah.
You're not doing something haram. It's okay. Like, you're going to feel these feelings. God has created you as a human being with emotions, and grief and bereavement is a very painful thing to go through. So I think this really needs to be addressed in the community. We need to have like workshops, like you mentioned. We need to train counselors to be part of like our communities, our centers. And I think the counselors themselves might need to put themselves out there a bit more, and like reach out to people they know who have been through a death in the family, and be like, I'd like to talk to you. Like, I'd like to sit and chat with you, to go for a coffee with you or something.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, and I think for children as well, because I mean, for me, I mean, I was only in my early 20s, but that's still, I feel like, such a young age for a parent to pass away, because you've got your whole life ahead of you. And I always imagine my parents at my wedding with my children, you know, it's just, you don't really, I think that's why for children is very important. And I think maybe if, I know they're introducing the mental health in the national curriculum, where we openly talk about it more, and it's in the lessons and things like that, which I think it should be in the mosques and centres as well. Definitely needed for children as well, And
I think also, I mean, I don't think I supported my children very well emotionally, because I was just about handling myself. Like, just about, you know, sort of surviving. But the schools were very good in offering any bereavement counselling, especially my eldest one. She was she was 16 and my mom passed away a month before her GCSEs started, not even a month, like 3
Oh,
weeks.
wow.
So it was really like a really tough time. And she was incredibly close to my mom. But then my friends and my cousins who were really close to her sort of stepped in because they could see that I was struggling, and
Yeah.
so they were there for her. So she sort of she had people to talk to. But actually, in hindsight, I wish I'd done more to help her and my other kids as well, because it does really impact them. And it's not, I don't think if a parent is grieving, they can't then support the children in that way. So we do need to have more people, I think, to be able to support children.
It's so important to have a support system. But
Definitely.
I think, but as your children grow older, they will definitely understand like your position and what
do
you
you know, they do. They you know, like my little one, she was not even 4 when my mum passed away, and if she'd see me cry, she'd just come and give me a hug. And you know, like she reacted in a way, like afterwards she'd be like, everything had to start with, when Nani died, we used to have tea and biscuits. Or before Nani died, we, like, everything. I bought this dress before Nani died. And a couple of weeks ago, I bought some flowers in Muharram. And she just said, they were actually for the house. We have a small azakhana. And she said, are the flowers for Nani's grave? And I'm like, no, they're for the house. And she just relates everything, you know, to that. But in a way, children are also very resilient. You know, they're very matter of fact as well, you know, so they're able to cope with somebody's died, somebody's gone to Jannah, and life is now without them as well, much more than adults. So my younger kids, my 3 younger ones, were able to sort of compartmentalize it. My older one, obviously, because she was older, found it much harder. But I have talked to them, you know, did I neglect you, or, you know, did you feel that you were completely, you know, alone or ignored? And they said, no, not at all, you know. So
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, it was a blessing. I don't know how it happened, but Alhamdulillah.
I think that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Just the fact that, you know, you understand that they've gone, they're never coming back, but it's just, okay, stop, let's carry on with life. Because for me, life came to just a standstill. I wasn't living anymore. I wasn't living, I was just surviving. I was literally, it was like sleep, eat, pray. I wasn't even working, just repeat. And that was my life for a very long time. I think I needed someone to just to get me out of that and just shake me and just say, come on, live life now. This is it. He's gone, he's not coming back, and you need to carry on. And I think I still have the emptiness. I don't think it'll ever go away though. But I'm okay with that. I think that's like, I know I lost a bit of myself since I lost him. But that's okay. I can deal with that.
I think it's also learning to accept that, you know, as you know, people are saying at the moment with coronavirus, it's the new normal. I felt the same, you know, like after my mom died, after a few months. It was the first time we went out for a family dinner, and my mom wasn't there, and it was to celebrate actually my daughter's GCSE results, which she did really well in. And it was like, actually, this is the new normal. It's life without my mum. And you know, it was the small things. Like, I think for probably a year, more than a year, I couldn't wear any makeup. I couldn't dye my hair. I could not wear bright clothes. I just couldn't. I physically couldn't. And I am the type of person, like, I love bright clothes. I love bright colors, but I couldn't do it. And it was when somebody said to me, you know what, your mum wouldn't want you to live like this. She'd want you to be happy and
live life.
Even then, it still took me a very long time. I feel like, in a way, like my personality is a bit subdued now, because I'm not happy without her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I've become very mellow, I think, and I'm not as
vibrant.
Yeah, exactly, vibrant, loud, and outgoing as I was before, and I'm okay with that. I think I prefer this Sabura over that Sabura, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's funny because I was just telling my husband today, I was like, I want to feel like me again. I mean, it's been like 2 years since my dad passed away, but I kind of miss the passion I had, the fire I had, and I just feel like slowly, I'm trying to learn that again. I'm trying to be myself again.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 years is a long time, but it doesn't feel like a long time. It feels more like 3 months.
It's 3 years for me, but it's not a long time though, is it?
It's not a long time.
It's not a long time. No. I mean, even 15 years from now, I'll probably still be saying it's not a long time. It's not a long time. I'm still dealing with it. Exactly. Yeah.
And it's funny, in the beginning you count the days and then the weeks and then they turn into months and then now you count, you count the years. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I think a big thing was I was very reluctant to live my life and just get on with it and do things. Like I wouldn't go back to work. And I think that really affected my mum because she just used to say, okay, Sabura, do you not want to go back to work? Do you not want to start, driving lessons? Do you not want to go out with your friends? And I'm like, no, I just need to stay home and just
be,
just let me live.
Yeah.
Not really living though, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not. Well, I used to remember whenever I felt like I was just procrastinating with life or just not doing anything, I used to feel like, no, my dad would want me to be productive. He didn't want me to just be sitting around doing nothing. Like, he didn't do that. I was like, if anything that I will do, if I wanted to take a new job, if I wanted to do a degree or anything like that, I'm going to do it like because of him and for him.
Exactly.
Like, you know, and it gives you it gives you kind of more of a purpose. You're just like, no, you know what? I'm going to make my dad proud.
Yeah. I think with my dad as well, he impacted so many lives, and I'm still hearing about how I meet these new people and they tell me how much my dad did for them and is still doing for them, and it's like I want to be that person. I want to leave a legacy like that. I want to have a life like he did and live like how he did, because he was the epitome of. He was just the best Muslim I knew, just all round human, very selfless, kind, loving. Father as well, I guess. Yeah. And
it's like you don't want to waste your life, and because
you don't,
it kind of feels like they died for no reason as well.
Exactly.
Like, they're your parents. They created you. They not created you, but as in like they brought you into life. And it's like if you just sit around, mope around, doing nothing, I'd rather be living my life in his name, like for him. Like I'm doing this because of you. And just like make them proud.
Yeah, inshallah.
Inshallah, may Allah bless the souls of our parents and of all who have passed away. Inshallah. May Allah bless them and give them an amazing, amazing afterlife and gardens and everything. Inshallah. Know that grief is a process that is very difficult. Whatever you're going through and whatever you're struggling with, it's not that it's okay, but it's painful. And you need to acknowledge that, and you need to validate your feelings, and don't feel like how like you're grieving, as in you need to like there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Grief is
normal.
Grief is
it should be normalized to feel feelings.
Absolutely,
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, and definitely reach out for help. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, this is the most natural thing.
Yeah,
I feel like our technological age, and maybe even the generation before us, as in I'm pretty sure back in the day, mental health was a very big issue. Well-being was a very big issue. Like taking care of your soul was so important in Islam. It's so important. There are so many like ahadith and traditions that talk about taking care of your soul, taking care of your well-being in terms of like even akhlaq-wise. Like there are things you can do that. It's true, like they tell you to be patient, and being patient isn't I don't know if we've mentioned this. It's not a passive thing. It's not just like sit down and just like take deep breaths and just be patient about it. Just ignore it, ignore your feelings, and that's how you're patient. No, being patient is educating yourself and telling yourself that I'm going through this period of pain right now. I'm gonna get through it. I have Allah by my side. I have the Ahlul Bayt. I'm going to learn from them. I'm going to look at their pain. I'm going to, like they went through pain. Just because the pain that we see the Ahlul Bayt have gone through, it doesn't mean we need to invalidate our own pain. No, we're feeling pain as real as well. So there's a lot to learn in terms of the whole grief process and what we can do moving forward.
I agree, yeah.
Inshallah. And inshallah this podcast can help people who are listening. If you have been through any period of grief, may Allah help you through it, and may Allah help you, get through it. Inshallah. It is very painful, we do understand. And Inshallah, Allah helps us all.
Thank you for listening in. Tune in to next week's episode on self-harm with Sister Fatima Aghai.